Well, I hope you guys can appreciate this. We are going from boring front suspension to this. It took a while to get here, and it's been a while since my last update. I was working on another project, and that client did not want that revealed or filmed, so it's been a couple of weeks to get back to this. As you can see, it's the Scrambler from the movie Space Hunter Adventures in the Forbidden Zone. And it's quite a unique vehicle. It's based on a 1982 Dodge Ram pickup. I originally thought it was a Dodge Ram Charger, but I actually found a forum. There's the forum, and there's the address. Anyway, these guys are in the UK, and they're quite dedicated, and they have some great resources on there. One of them is an interview with some of the people involved with the film, and that's where I got the information for the type of vehicle it was. So this is built on a full representation in 1/35th scale of a 1982 four-wheel drive Dodge Ram pickup. You can see the body's taking shape, and some have asked, they want to see exactly how I work. So I have my cardstock cut out here to scale. I have a little mark on the cardstock there to show the center line of the axle, so my little locator pins come in handy for that. In order to get this lined up, basically I sat it on the same work blocks that the chassis sits on. That's what these support blocks are here. And I laid it on there, and it worked out really nicely. So next I needed a front view, so I went to another screen capture and did the same thing, made it a black and white image, printed it out, traced it on a light box. So I traced that out, and then I cut out basically what I'm calling the grill area and transferred that on the cardstock. And then what I did was I had to get the position and the angle of this area here on the front of the truck, on the body. So I cut it out in cardstock, and I cut it and trim it till it fits in the frame the way that I want it to. And there you have it. And that's pretty good, isn't it? Look at that. That cardstock lines right up with that body. So once I had that, then I do the same thing here. I trace again on cardstock and cut out the side body panel and fit that on here as best I could. And I had this floor in place, this part here, so I could rest my cutout on that and match up this line here. And as I went along, then I was able to cut that out in I guess this is 40 thousandths. That's 40 thousandths styrene I'm using. And then I temporarily just tack things together in place, and then just eyeball using screen captures as best I can. Isn't that a cool looking vehicle? How is that not cool? Here she comes. There's Peter looking at. Look at that. Look at that front windshield. Look at that. Some kind of war surplus vehicle that's from. But there's a really nice front view that I used. And see, here's the reason why it was important to model the chassis. Look, you can see it. You can see the four-wheel drive suspension and the front differential and everything. So, some people say, well, you're going overboard, you're going too crazy. Well, I don't think so. It's part of the vehicle. I mean, look at the back. Let me see if I can get rid of this glare. There we go. Helps a little. Look at the back of that vehicle. Look at that. That is so wild looking. And a little turret up top. And you can see here I was talking about earlier where the cloth is showing through. I imagine this vehicle was made in a hurry. There's a bad guy. Let's see, there's more of the suspension. There's the power steering unit. That's how I get from A to B. I use a lot of cardstock and a lot of screen captures, and go back and forth and back and forth. Sometimes you have to sit back and take a break from something to make sure, come back with a fresh eye, and then you can see how either you agree with it still, or how it looks really way off and you're going to have to move it and start over with a new cutout. That's how I do these kinds of vehicles when you don't have blueprints and line drawings and things like that. You wing it and you do the best you can. It's a very amorphous body shape, and but I've got a lot of the details in here. We're well on the way. We have a long way to go. Obviously just the master will be at Wonderfest this year. This is nowhere near going to be ready enough to pop under rubber to get some casting. Now I've got the body and all the different components off, so you can now see the chassis, along with finding the Space Hunter forum, which had a key interview in there to lead me to the proper vehicle chassis. I also joined a couple truck forums, Dodge truck forums. Somebody was kind enough to actually scan a shop manual which had plan views of the frame and with all the inch dimensions on it. So you can see here I've got a lot of the cross members in place, still a few more to go. You can see the rear differential here along with the leaf spring. You can see I have the power steering unit and the shackles and the leaf springs represented all right here. So a little out of focus there. As I mentioned before, the winch is there. You can see the front differential. These are the M35 tires I found. I did a lot of research on this vehicle, as I mentioned, and did some image searches for military trucks from the 70s, and M35s started to appear, and those were the tires right there. I actually found these on the internet, these tires. Very well made. I'll be making my own though for this kit. These are just placeholders so I can have the proper size and dimension, so I can reference the body shell to those tires, because I don't have dimensions on the actual shell, so you have to use the tires, their distances from the body, to be able to properly represent the shell. You can see how very odd shaped this is. It's making it a wall thickness, so it's going to be easily cast. And you can see the odd break on the side here, on the left side. Headless Peter Strauss waiting to be finished. I'll be sculpting a Molly Ringwald figure. But it's coming along nicely, and I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am making it. But the goal is to sell kits. Well, that's it for now on the Scrambler for this update. Obviously more to come as we get closer to completion of the pattern and closer to Wonderfest. Well, I've got the brown Bess gently clamped in the vise on my milling machine. I've got my drill bit, countersink ready to go, brand new screw. And we're going to duplicate that setup, that small screw there. I'm going to place right here where my pointer is located. I've got my digital readout all set. It's all zeroed out, ready to go. And I can use that. It'll enable me to get things done much quicker rather than drop the bed 12 inches to change out a cutter. I can just move off center 6 inches and get the job done much easier. Change in a new cutter, move back on center, follow the DRO, and we can get started. you have it. Well, now that I've got our new screw fitting nicely, countersunk properly into the brass fitting, I can go ahead and replace it onto the stock. What I'll do is I'll put the rear screw in so we can anchor it in place in the proper position. And then what we'll do is we're just going to go ahead and use a little brute force, and we're just going to tap this screw right in place. So we get it started here. Just steady downward pressure, and we're going to tap this right in place. Perfect. Not bad. That looks pretty good if I do say so myself. Much more sturdy of a connection than the little wood screw that I showed you before. Worked out pretty nicely. Well, I finally have the lock finished here, fitting perfectly right up against the barrel. I've got the flint transferred from the old lock, so this is ready to go. And I thought when I started this, as I explained earlier, that I was going to need to make a whole new backing plate here out of brass. But what I found was that the bolts line up pretty nice. They line up really well. So when I tighten this down, I go ahead and tighten this down. It's only at a very slight angle. And look at that. It's just off a tiny bit. It doesn't affect how the lock works. And once you snug these bolts down, pretty strong mainspring. This pan is flush right up against the barrel, and you have to have that in this type of firearm, because when you prime the pan, it's loose powder, and if you have a gap in between the barrel and the pan, you're going to collect gunpowder down inside the stock, and eventually you're going to get an errant spark in there, and you're going to have a rather large bang. So for safety reasons, you cannot have a big gap here. So once I tighten these bolts down, they fit right up against it. I thought it was going to give me a problem. I had a 20 thousandths gap for a while. I tightened these bolts down, and it disappeared. So yeah, always put glasses on when you're doing this to test this. And there we go. Look at that. Hoo-hoo. Beautiful. Look at that. It's beautiful. This is hardened just right. The flint's lining up just perfectly square to here. It's a little loose. We have a piece of lead gripping it here. And once we tighten it down a few times, it'll settle in place and lock down nice. Transferred the flash guard from the old lock, and this is ready to be delivered. So Dennis, you should be very pleased with your Shortland Bess, with I think the strongest mainspring on the East Coast. There you have it.